Hi everyone, this is Charmander, and in this video, I'm going to do a first look review of Boyd Warden, which is going to be the new Infantry Top Commander Garrison-based hero that's coming up in the next Top Commander. I actually predicted several months ago that they are going to be releasing a new Infantry Garrison hero with a super weapon just because it makes sense based on the past patterns where both Rider and Range both got a hero with a super weapon that is Rally base and Garrison base. So all troop type are now complete, with Boyd being the last one to get their Garrison main hero with a super weapon called Howling Sentry. This super weapon is actually quite strong if you look at it, because it increases the infantry squad damage by 10%, which is a lot. For every 15% squad size loss, increases infantry squad attack by 5% and gain a 5% shield bonus. This effect can stack up to 6 times. The one thing interesting about this is it doesn't say how long the increase in infantry attack and shield bonus is going to last for. So all it says is it stacks up to 6 times, right? So if you do the math, 5 times 6, that's 30%. So 30% increase in infantry squad attack and 30% increase in shield bonus. So I am wondering potentially that this is actually a permanent effect and you can stack it up to 6 times, meaning it's actually in your best interest to let this hero that is doing Garrison stack it up to 6 times, so pretty much lose a lot of squad size. And once you get that 6 times stacking of the infantry squad attack and the shield bonus, then you can refill this squad. Now, I don't know if you will lose some of the effect if you refill it again. So that's actually quite interesting to see how this is going to work in practice. I also had a prediction several months ago that the new Garrison hero that IGG is going to release is actually going to be replacing Riguro, because the current meta for infantry Garrison is Riguro and Riven, which makes sense if you look at Riguro's skill. His first skill has a shield factor that absorbs 9,600, right? And basically with Riven, her third skill increases the shield bonus by 30%. So as you can see, that's a lot of shield that this Garrison pair is going to do together. Not to mention Riven also has a huge amount of DPS with 3,900 damage every 4 seconds. However, Riguro is an old hero, so I figured they are probably going to be replacing him because it doesn't make sense to replace Riven, and seeing how she seems to be one of the best Garrison heroes for infantry in general. So I was correct. As a matter of fact, if you look at the strategy here, they actually recommend Boyd and Riven to be together, and I actually predicted this way in advance that I communicated with our infantry Garrison main in my alliance to save up all their shards to dump into this new hero right when he comes out. So we are actually well prepared already for the coming of this hero, and I'm excited to see how he's gonna do in practice once he becomes available for players. So let's look at his skill, and I'm going to compare it with the regular one versus Transcended one. So his first skill is called Rift Frequency, which is a rage skill that has a damage factor of 14,000. When not Garrison or in a rally, this damage is increased with the reduction of own squad size up to a maximum of 25%. So the second part here is actually quite interesting because it looks like they want you to use him in the field also, because the second part of the skill only applies when you are not doing Garrison or rally. Now, if we transcend the skill, the damage factor is now a huge 15,300, which is a massive amount of damage. This is even stronger than what Bard has. So I do think Boyd Warden's skill damage is actually the strongest now in the game when transcended, just based on the skill description alone. Now, they also added a second part to his transcended skill, and that is also when squad size is below 50%, gain a shield for 3 seconds based on 20% of this damage dealt. So 20% of 15,300 is 4,590. So that is an extra 4,590 shield, which is pretty damn good. It seems like the second part here also will also work while you are doing Garrison, because it's not the one in the middle description here. When not Garrison or in a rally, this damage is increased with a reduction of own squad size up to a maximum of 25%. So it looks like it will also work while you're doing Garrison. So this is actually really good. His second skill, when not Transcended, is called Predator's Deterrence, which is a passive skill. And when you're doing Garrison, it increases skill damage by up to 30% and damage dealt to Rider squads by up to 5%. So as you can see, the second part here is specifically to counter Rider and to counter Rubina. The weird thing is not many people are actually using Rubina, at least not in Fearless Warzone where I play. I'm not sure if they use him a lot in Elite or Apex Warzone. I did hear in Apex Warzone that Rubina is not as good as her stats show her to be. So I don't actually know if a counter to Rubina was needed to begin with, but regardless, here we are. So if you have the rare time someone is going to do a rider rally on you, you are going to be doing more damage to riders. Let's take a look at what happens when you transcend the skill. So this skill, when you transcend Predator's deterrence, it increases skill damage by 35%. This is a huge amount because this is an increase from before you transcend it by 5%. And also you can now use it during field battles and also during rallies. So the second skill allows Boyd to use this second skill in the form of rallying and in the form of field battles. When Garrison increases damage dealt to rider squad by 5%. So the second part of this transcended skill has no change whatsoever. His third skill is called Omni Surveillance, which is a passive skill. When not Garrison or in a rally, increases infantry squad attack by up to 40%. When Garrison, increases infantry HP by up to 30%. When taking skill damage, gains a shield factor of up to 2000 for 3 seconds. This effect can be triggered up to 1 time every 6 seconds. So it's kind of weird that they put a lot of skill that only works for him when he's not doing Garrison because he's a Garrison-based hero. Regardless, the extra 2000 shield factor is quite nice, and the infantry squad HP of 30% is also quite nice. Let's see what happens when you transcend the skill. So basically, when you transcend it, the not Garrison or rally squad attack goes up to 50%. So that is a 10% increase from before you transcend him. And when you Garrison, it increases the infantry HP by 35%. So that is a 5% increase. And when taking skill damage, gains a shield factor of 2500 for 3 seconds. This effect can be triggered up to 1 time every 5 seconds. So the duration that it gets fired is now going to be shorter. I would say this skill is not bad. Last but not least, we have Kinetic Energy Recovery, which is a passive skill that increases squad attack by up to 20%. When not Garrison or in a rally, Boyd Warden gains a shield factor of 6000 for 3 seconds for every 2 rage skill he uses. So I don't know why this hero is so weird. Like, when not Garrison or in a rally, this guy is a Garrison hero. Now let's look at his max level. So when you transcend this, it goes up by 5% for the infantry squad attack. When not Garrison or in a rally, increases Boyd Warden's rage recovery speed by 30%, which is actually quite a lot. So they actually want you to use him in the field. It gains a shield factor of 7000 for 3 seconds for every 2 rage skill use. I don't know why they didn't put this for the purpose of Garrison. This absolutely makes no sense. This hero is very confused, if you were to ask me. Regardless, that shield factor is actually quite huge. If I was infantry main, I would be upset they did not put this for Garrison. Why is this for field? Makes absolutely no sense. That's so annoying. So when you awaken Boyd Warden's 5th skill, which is Sonic Pulse, it is a passive skill where 20% of the shield absorption is converted to damage and deflected to Boyd's Warden current target. So this is actually quite nice because this is pretty much a counter damage that you're doing in the form of a shield, and it doesn't look like it will be reduced by any other factors. It's going to be a direct 20% of that damage that you deal. So it's a pretty nice damage deflection that's being provided. Now, when you transcend this skill, it's going to be 25% of the shield's absorption that will be converted to damage and deflected to Boyd Warden's current target. This is actually a lot of damage, especially if, let's say, a range rally is hitting you. 25% of that damage is going back to that range squad. So this is actually a good counter, not just for anyone that's rallying Boyd, but for range, which is supposed to be stronger than infantry. But with this skill, this makes Boyd quite a huge damage dealing Garrison hero. When the shield is lost, reduce damage taken by infantry squad by 12% for 3 seconds. That is a huge damage reduction. That is insane. But here's the tricky thing about this hero. This hero is going to be very expensive because the only way you can take advantage of this ridiculous, amazing, transcended awakened skill is if you fully max out Boyd's super weapon, and that's going to cost you a lot of steel in that splendid steel event. So this hero is going to be expensive as hell. I actually think he's a really good hero, and together with Riven, this is going to be a massively damage dealing infantry Garrison based hero, but he's going to be very expensive. So overall, Boyd is both a good hero but also a confused hero. So it's going to be interesting to see how he pans out in the game. I do think that this officially makes Boyd Warden the strongest infantry Garrison hero in the game now, paired up with Riven, obviously. I don't think Riguro and Riven would be completely obsolete yet because Riguro and Riven seems to have a better defensive capability. So it seems like if your goal's defense and also if you are on a budget, Riguro and Riven is the better option. Otherwise, you would go with Boyd and Riven as your hero pair for the purpose of infantry Garrison. Anyways, that's about it for this video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I will see you next time. Bye-bye.